Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of review and maybe add a couple of new twists to our discussion of the NNXT sampler in Reason. We started this last week. Remember, the controls that I demonstrate are controls that you would find on other samplers as well, whether they're hardware samplers or virtual samplers like this device. So I've added an NNXT to the rack, and it comes loaded with that piano sound. And the first thing we're going to do is get rid of that piano sound. So I'll just right click. Notice I'm not clicking on a display or a knob or a button. I'm going to right click. I'm going to choose Reset Device. And that will get the samples that were loaded out of there. And I'll open up the remote editor. If I just undo really quickly, you'll see, whoops, wrong button. That piano patch that I played a minute ago before I reset the device is a multi-patch. It came loaded with lots of samples in it, and I wanted to undo that. Okay, so again, let's reset the device. I can never find it when I need it. There we go. Now we have an empty sampler. And what we're going to do with this sampler, we're going to record a sample. Last time we were editing samples in Pro Tools, and then we would import them. We were building up a sample library. That's perfectly well and good to do. The thing you have to remember is if you're loading individual samples into this device, you do that with this browser button here. And this one up here is to browse multi-sample patches. So we'll stay away from that, from this exercise. In fact, we're going to record a sample directly into this device using the button right next to the sample browser. Okay, so I'll click this button, and as soon as I do, it'll start recording. Hello, my name is Mike. Very inventive sample, I'm sure. Hello, my name is Mike. Okay, good. So last week again, we were editing in Pro Tools. You can create and edit samples in any DAW and then load them back into Reason or back into whatever sampler you're using at the time. It is important that you know what types of audio files the sampler you're using supports. All right, so I'm going to excuse me, rather than loading a sample in, though, we've recorded it directly in here. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate Reason's sample editor. And the way I can open that up, there are a couple of different ways. The way I'm going to do it is just right-click right on that word, that name. Again, if you don't have a right-click mouse, if you're using an older Mac or an older mouse or a laptop, you can do Control and click to get this same window. And what I want to do is edit that sample. So I'll choose Edit Sample from the little pop-up menu. And it opens up the Reason Sample Editor window. First thing I like to do is change the name of that sample. If I let Reason keep naming these using that default naming, sample 1, sample 2, it's going to get really confusing if I add too many more samples. So I'm going to change that to the name of what I hear, and I'll just name it Hello Mike. I think I'll know what that means later. All right, let's see what some of these other editor screen buttons are. There's the play button. Hello, my name is Mike. Obviously, that's pretty obvious what that does. There's zoom in and out. Up here, there's an undo and a redo. There's a crop button, which means we could set an area, say, oh, I only want this much of the sample. I'll move these markers, the start and end time. And then I could crop it so that that's all I get. I've edited out the rest of the sample. Hello. Okay, and remember, you have an undo button, which can come in really handy. So let's see if this is back to where it was. Put these left and right markers, the start and stop time back where they were. Hello, my name is Mike. Some other buttons up here, normalize, will boost all of the levels of all of these transients, and it does it to the point where the loudest transients right in here get just below the point where they would start clipping. So everything's going to be boosted up by the same proportion. That can be really nice and helpful, give you more sound, but it can also boost the noise. So if you're recording in a noisy environment, just be aware, normalizing is going to make that noise even louder. Hello, my name is Mike. Okay, that'll work okay for our purposes. I could play the sample backwards if I want, using the reverse button. Now, if I were to hit save now, that backwards sample is what would be loaded into my sampler to trigger from the keyboard. I'm going to undo that. And back to the normal sample. I could fade in, fade out. I don't need to do that for this particular sample. Okay, so that's pretty much what we covered last time. We quickly looked at these loop modes. I can get it to loop forward, or I can get the sample to play forward and then backwards. Let's try that first, just so you see how it works. You see the markers here. I'm going to broaden those out to the whole sample. Hello, my name is Mike. And you just saw that thing looping. It's looping back and forth. We're not going to use that for this exercise. What we're going to do instead is we're going to use this forward loop button. And clicking on either one of those loop buttons made these left and right markers, which I'm just moving around now, made those appear. They weren't really visible before. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to set this up to find an area that loops. And here's why you might want to do that. Imagine instead of this being a vocal sample, what if I had a violinist in a recording studio and I recorded him or her playing a long note and saved that as a sample and loaded it into my device. And I could trigger that long note from my MIDI keyboard. But what if for a particular piece of music you're creating, you wanted that note to be even longer than he or she originally played it? You have two choices. You can go back in the studio and get them to play a longer note, or what might be more practical is to find a section of that sustained part of the sound that you could loop. And then you can set your sampler up to play through that looping sustained note for as long as you hold the MIDI key down. And then when you let go of the MIDI key, the rest of the sample will continue. That's what we're going to do in a couple of minutes here. But first things first, we have to find a good spot for this to loop. I usually like to get a starting point just by eyeballing it, looking at a section where the sound wave looks pretty consistent. This is close. Let's see what it sounds like when I loop this now. Hello. Pretty good, except do you hear that little click? We're going to see if we can get rid of that click. Now the best way to get rid of that click, the way that'll be most obvious, is to zoom in. So I'm going to use this little plus button here and zoom way in. And as often happens when I zoom way in, I don't see my markers on the screen anymore. So I'm going to drag this to the right until I see the left marker. There it is. All right. Now, part of the reason samples or loops click is because they loop in the middle of a sound wave. What you want to do in the perfect world, you want to get that sample to loop right at the point when the sound wave is crossing this center line, this center kind of 0 point. You don't want it to loop when the waveform is above that line or below that line. So I'm going to move this left marker, just eyeballing it to what looks like it's at the 0 crossing point. And I'll move the whole view so that I can see the right loop marker. There it is. And I'll do the same. See how it's clicking, probably because of this or maybe that previous marker position. So I'm going to move this to what looks like a 0 point. That's close to a 0 point. And then I'll play it now, see if it's any better. Hello. Still a little bit of a click. It's better, but still a little bit of a click. I'll zoom out so I can see them both in the screen. And maybe we'll try moving this one a little bit, see if that improves the sound at all. A little better, right? Less clicky. Let's see what we can do with this next marker. That's a little worse. Worse. A little better. Okay, so the idea here is to use a combination of your eyes, looking for those 0 points, but your ears are going to be your best guide in an exercise like this. Okay, and the more you zoom in, the clearer it might be. For our purposes, I don't want to spend too much time with this. We'll just say that's good enough, okay? So if that's good enough, then the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and save this sample. And then we'll see how it works in the NNXT. So click Save, and there it is. Now I should be able to play it on the keyboard. And it's currently set, I think this is the default setting for this sampler, forward loop. I'm going to change that just to forward, and I'll play a note. Hello, my name is Mike. Okay, so with just forward mode selected in the play mode, it just plays through the sample. It doesn't loop at all. I'm still holding the key down. No more looping. Now let's see what it does when I choose forward loop. Hello. Okay, it's looping. And I'm still holding the key down. What happens when I let go? It just cut off. Why did it cut off? Aha. Probably cut off because I let go of a key, and look at the release time. It's set pretty low. I'm going to increase that. Hello. It's looping. I'll let go. And it's gradually fading away on that looped section. That's not quite what I want either. What I want is for it to loop while I'm holding the keys, and when I let go, I want it to play through the rest of the sample. So I'm going to keep that release time long, so that will happen, or it'll be able to continue playing after I let go. But I'm going to try another mode here. Let's see what else is available. Forward and backward, I don't think we want that. That's going to play through the whole sample forward, play through the whole sample backward. We don't want that. Let's see what's after that. Forward sustain is how they mark it on this device. Let's see if that works. Hello. Okay, I'm still holding the note. We're at that looped section, and I'm about to let go. Now I'll let go. My name is Mike. That's it. That's what we wanted. So it'll loop as long as I'm holding. When I let go, it plays to the end of the sample. Hello. 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 You heard me play 3 notes, one at a time, right? And now they're all looping. It kind of blends as a nice chord. I'll play one more note. Play the octave above. So I've got a nice 4-note chord, a triad with a root doubled. And I'm going to let go of the notes now one at a time in the same order that I played them. So here goes the low note first. My name is Mike. And now the middle note. My name is Mike. Now the 5th of the chord.
My name is Mike.
And now the only one that's playing now, whoops, I hit a wrong key. Hit it with my finger by mistake. But the only one that's sustaining is the top note that I'm playing. I'll let go of that.
Hello, my name is Mike.
Got the idea?
Hello.
Pretty cool, eh?
My name is Mike.
That's it for this tutorial.